I'm so excited to be here today. My name is Kristen Osborn, and I'm the director for The Tasters by Meghan Brown.
Great.
And today we're going to have a little chat, but first we'll do some introductions. As I said, I'm Kristen, and I am directing The Tasters.
And I'm Megan, and I wrote The Tasters.
And I'm RJ, and I'm the dramaturg for The Tasters here at UT.
Yay. And as a starting point, I feel like it would be great to just cover like loose, spontaneous synopsis, brief synopsis without spoilers. What is The Tasters about?
So The Tasters is about 3 women who work as food tasters in sort of a futuristic dystopia. So they have a bite of this beautifully prepared gourmet food, and then they wait to see if they die from being poisoned. And there's a new taster who arrives, who decides to go on hunger strike and will not be eating this food anymore. So it's about what happens when there's a little bit of a hiccup in the machine of the way that things are usually supposed to go.
So, Megan, you know this. I first encountered the play in 2019 for the world premiere at Rivendell Theater Ensemble in Chicago. And RJ and I have been working together on the play here now for many months. But thinking back to where it started, I'd love to know, where did this play come from for you? What made you write it? What were you thinking about? And then how do you feel about performing it now? How has that evolved?
And that's such a great question. The beginning seeds of this play started in 2015. So it was, now a while ago. And then in 2016, when the majority of the writing happened, I had really been sort of preoccupied with this idea of complicity. And what does it mean to be complicit in a society where you might not feel like you're doing anything actively wrong or actively harmful or actively damaging, and maybe you disagree with the way that things are, but you're not really doing anything to stop it, and you're not really participating as much as you're just focusing on your own safety and your own comfort. And so for me, like, the play really came out of this idea of exploring what is your responsibility to the society around you. If you feel like you're in a toxic society, what are you obligated to do? And I think that performing it now isn't as different as I maybe would have thought in 2021. I think that, despite some massive political changes that have happened since this play was sort of conceptualized, all of these same issues still continue. And, I hate that it's not less relevant now, I would say. But I think that fundamentally the same questions about what are we all responsible for in terms of the society around us still stick. And there's still questions that I have.
So one of the constants in The Tasters is, of course, the food. And that plays a really big role, obviously, because of the tasters and tasting. So we were just wondering, like, what is your take on, like, what is the food doing in the play?
I was really, it's funny, when I was thinking about this earlier, sometimes you don't know where your own ideas come from. And it's like, if you asked me when I was writing it, it's like, I don't know. I just kind of had this idea, and who knows what it means. But I think your subconscious a lot of times is doing the work. And I think looking back on it, the food, it is something that you need to survive. So like, we've all got to eat. But it's what they're eating. It's this really elevated, gourmet, luscious, privileged, fancy diet, while everyone around them in the outside world is starving, and there's a hunger crisis. And to sort of see, like, everybody's surviving, everybody's like eating something, but what we're eating is very, very different, and not everyone is getting the same plate. And the way that they're getting the plate is by being complicit in this larger government structure that's very damaging, and that most of the tasters don't agree with. But if they agree with it enough, they get the privilege of this really symbolic, beautiful meal. I'm also always really interested in writing about women and bodies, and I feel like the idea that food and, food as a means of control and as being controlled is really of interest to me, and this idea that a lot of the women in this play, the only way that they can really show autonomy is by starving themselves, which is like a deeply troubling, weird idea.
One can only really express their control through what they can do with their body and how they can make that choice.
And I think it's also like this idea of the women being infantilized, where it's like if you have a toddler, like a toddler can only show control by saying no. Like saying yes is usually not, you're not the boss because you said yes. You're just going along. And this idea of, I'm not going to eat, like, yeah, it's such a primitive way to like assert some sort of power and control.
That decision to not eat, to one of the characters in the play says to put your fork down, was one of the things that really spoke to me the first time that I read The Tasters, and is one of the pieces of audience conversation that I'm excited to have. And one thing that I love to think about when making a play is like, we're doing this in the theater, at 7:30 every night or whatever, and what are people going to take with them?
Yeah.
What is the taste that we're going to leave in their mouth? And I love to just imagine, I know you laugh at my food metaphors, there are a lot of food metaphors, but just thinking about like, what are those conversations that you, maybe as you were writing this play or as you think about it now, like if you could be a fly on the wall, what would you want to hear people talking about?
I mean, something I was not expecting in this play, but I really love, it's that everyone's sympathy sort of goes to a different character. I think when I was writing it, my assumption is that everyone would agree with the protagonist, because that's how I see myself, and I felt like that was so clear. And that's really not what happens. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity to sort of notice about yourself. Where are you sympathetic, and where are you harsh, and where do you understand, and where do you not want to understand, and like what are the areas where you feel like you fit into this world? And the idea is it's these 5 characters who have really drastically different outlooks on the way that the world works. And all of them are really, to the best of their ability, trying to do what they think good is. They're trying to push forward to that. So I think the conversation I'm interested in, eavesdropping on would be just, to see where do people find themselves in this story.
That's one of my favorite things when I was reading The Tasters, was the fact that all of these characters, all of these people, they are people, and they're all fully realized people with their own outlooks and their own identities. And the fact that an audience member could identify with any one of them at any point in time is really incredible. And the sort of ending of the play, which we won't get into, but
Spoiler.
But it really emphasizes the power of the individual, I think.
Yeah, that power of the individual really speaks to me, and the power of the collective. It's an individual who makes a decision, and then other individuals who join that person. That resonated with me as well, for sure.
I really hate that the like snowflake analogy has become so terribly loaded, because in some ways it is such a wonderful, where you're like, yes, each snowflake is special and is different and is unique and has its own mind. But you need enough to get a snowstorm. Like you need all of these little individual pieces to align. And something that we've been talking about in rehearsal, there's a moment, again, no spoilers, but there's a moment in the play where if one person took massive action, everything could be different. And it's sort of watching how, yes, you're part of a collective, you're part of a group, you have a group identity, you've settled into a belief system that confirms that identity. And then often, I mean, I think all of us are put in situations where despite that group and despite that identity, it's just you. And you are in control of what you are going to do in this moment, regardless of the world around you. And I think that idea is very troubling to me. Like, I don't like that amount of responsibility.
Your writing, Meghan, has sometimes been described as dealing with dangerous women. Mm-hmm. And this is a phrase that I've heard in relation to you, in relation to your writing. And can you speak a little bit to, like, what does that mean, dangerous women, and why does that excite you as a writer?
It really, the reason you probably have heard that is because I write it on everything. It's on my website, it's in the bio. And I think for me, I first encountered just that phrasing. It was an interview of someone interviewing Emma Goldman. And it was like she was smoking a cigar in like a men's only cigar club. And the journalist approached her and was like, I could tell from across the room she was a dangerous woman. For a long time, most of my work was centered around women and violence. So I was really interested in, women who sort of really subverted a classically feminine presentation of sort of victimhood and softness and a really motherly, warm feeling. And then as I've gotten a little older, I've sort of expanded outside of solely like being interested in violent women to women who are subverting just the emotional expectations of womanhood in this society. So I've kind of, I'm a little bit more interested in this phase of my life in sort of an emotional danger and in a woman who doesn't do what she's supposed to and what's expected, and who is a little maybe braver than I am. I'm really interested in living through characters who really are unafraid in a way that I think is almost impossible to be in life without at least dire consequences. Mm-hmm.
You have put such an incredible array of dishes into this play. The food throughout is just mouth-watering, and from the opening pages of the play, it is explicit mouth-watering food. And so one of the things that I've loved imagining is, the experience that one would have eating this food. Mm-hmm. So my question is, if you could eat anything in the play, I pose this to you as well, RJ, which dish would you eat?
I would say, so banana puff puff is probably my favorite, maybe not for the taste, but I just love the sound of it. So I would, for writer reasons, I would go with banana puff puff.
Banana puff puff is good.
I was thinking about banana puff puff. That was the one that came to mind, but then I remembered that at one point there's mentioned a sweet potato tamale with pecan butter. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes.
Every time I hear that, just my mouth begins to water.
Yeah, one of the more fun elements of writing it was finding, I was, scanning wedding menus that I found randomly on the internet to find the most gratuitously described foods. So I have not eaten any of them really, so I would love to one day.
Yes. I will say that one of the best parts of the research for the show so far, for me as a director, has been eating some of the food. And our integrated media designer, Zoe Crow, and I decided to make one of the dishes from the play, no spoilers, but paprika chicken.
Oh.
We made. And
it's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a loaded dish. And it was delicious. And I just was like, thank you, Meghan Brown. This was fantastic. I'd never had it before.
That's very inspiring.
Yeah.
I think I might maybe I'll do a month. I can do, November in honor of the tasters.
There you go.
Learn some new dishes.
Totally.
So, another fun question. If you had 3 words to describe the tasters, what would they be?
I would say, again, this is a little like aspirational words, the way I would like to have it described. Say dangerous, hungry, and fulfilling would be my 3 ideal things. If we could get to that point.
I think dangerous is a really good one. but for me, maybe intense, bright, definitely, and I think like inspiring.
All right, I would do powerful, delicious, and enthralling.
So, what advice do you think you would have for someone coming to see the Tasters for the first time?
I would say don't come hungry, because there's going to be a lot of talk about food, and you might not want to eat afterwards. So yeah, I would say have a nice dinner beforehand, and leave that there.
Come hungry for action,
Yes.
not for dinner.
Yes. Hungry for action is perfect.
Well, it's so exciting to get to talk to you, Meghan. Thank you, and thank you, RJ, for being part of this. We're so excited to put the Tasters in front of our Texas audience here, and we can't wait to see you at the show November 3rd through 14th. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be tasty, dangerous, all of the good things. And thank you so much for watching.